I'm 89 years old, and 3 months ago my children sat me down in my own living room and told me it was time to move into assisted living. They didn't say it meanly. They said it with concern, with careful voices, with brochures they'd already collected. But what I heard was, "Dad, you're done deciding things for yourself. My name is Walter. I've been alive since 1936. I've buried a wife, a best friend, and a son. I've lived in this house for 42 years, and I've spent most of my life making decisions for other people, my family, my employees, my church board, while somehow forgetting to make the ones that mattered most. This time I decided differently, but it took me 89 years to learn how. There was a morning in July of 1987 when everything should have changed for me, though it didn't. I was 51 years old. My son David was 23, just graduated college, full of plans and energy and that kind of confidence you have before life teaches you otherwise. That morning he came into the kitchen, where I was reading the newspaper and drinking my second cup of coffee. "Dad," he said, "can we talk?" I looked up. "I've got a meeting at 9. Can it wait?" He stood there for a moment, and I remember seeing something pass across his face. Disappointment, maybe, or resignation. "Yeah," he said, "it can wait." He walked out. I went back to my paper. David died 6 years later, in a car accident. He was 29, and I never found out what he wanted to talk about that morning. I've carried that for 38 years now. Not the big things I missed, his wedding, which happened, the birth of his daughter, which I was there for, but that one ordinary Tuesday morning when he needed his father, and I was too busy reading about things that didn't matter to people I'd never meet. After the funeral, I made myself a promise. I told myself I'd be present, available, there when it mattered. I meant it too, for maybe a month. Then work got busy again. The church needed a new roof. My wife, Margaret, needed help with her mother. Life came back the way it always does, and I slipped back into the rhythm of being too busy to notice what I was missing. Margaret used to say I was like a train, always moving, always on schedule, never stopping to look out the windows. She'd say it gently, usually while I was organizing something or planning something or fixing something that didn't need fixing right then. "Walter," she'd say, "sit down, the dishes can wait." But I never did, because sitting still felt like wasting time, and I'd spent my whole life believing that productivity was the same thing as purpose. Margaret died in 2011. Stroke, fast. She was 73. We'd been married 49 years. After she was gone, I found a journal she'd kept. Nothing elaborate, just a small notebook where she'd written things she wanted to remember. Most of it was ordinary. What we'd had for dinner, a bird she'd seen in the yard, a conversation with a friend. But scattered through the pages were entries that mentioned me. Tried to get Walter to come sit on the porch tonight. He said he had to organize the garage. Asked Walter if he remembered our first date. He said yes, but couldn't recall any details. Sometimes I feel like I'm living with a very busy stranger. I sat at the kitchen table and read that journal front to back, and I realized I'd spent 5 decades with a woman I loved but never fully knew. Not because she was secretive, but because I was always halfway somewhere else, always thinking about the next thing, the next project, the next responsibility. Never just there. After Margaret died, my daughter Linda started calling more often. Not every day, but a few times a week. She'd ask how I was doing. If I needed anything, if I'd eaten, I'd tell her I was fine, that I didn't need help, that she shouldn't worry. And then I'd get off the phone as quickly as possible, because I had things to do. Except I didn't, really. I just didn't know how to be still. Last year I fell. Nothing dramatic. I was reaching for something on a high shelf in the garage, lost my balance and went down hard. Broke my wrist, bruised my hip, spent 2 days in the hospital. Linda came immediately. So did my son Robert. They took shifts staying with me, and I could see them exchanging looks when they thought I wasn't paying attention. The kind of looks that say he can't live alone anymore. 3 months ago they came over together, sat me down in my own living room with those brochures spread out on the coffee table like evidence. Linda did most of the talking. She said they'd been researching places, that there was a nice facility 20 minutes away with activities and meal plans and staff who could help if I needed anything. She said it wasn't a nursing home, it was assisted living, independent but safe. She said they were worried about me being alone in this big house. Robert nodded along, his face careful and concerned, and I sat there listening, feeling something I hadn't felt in decades, anger, not at them, at myself, because I realized that I'd spent 89 years being so busy taking care of things that I'd forgotten to take care of the one thing that mattered most, my life, my choices, my time. I told them no, not angrily, not dramatically. I just said, I appreciate your concern, but I'm not moving. Linda started to argue, but I held up my hand. Let me finish, I said, and then I told them something I should have said years ago. I told them about David, about that morning in 1987, about how I'd never know what he wanted to say because I was too busy to listen. I told them about Margaret's journal, about the entries where she'd written that she felt alone even though I was in the next room. I told them that I'd spent my entire life running from one responsibility to the next, believing that staying busy meant staying valuable, and that I'd finally realized I'd wasted most of it. I'm 89 years old, I said. I don't know how much time I have left. Maybe a year, maybe 5. Maybe I'll fall tomorrow and that'll be it. But whatever time I have, I'm not spending it in a place where someone else decides when I eat and what I do and whether I'm allowed to stay up late reading if I feel like it. I'm not spending what's left of my life being managed. There was a long silence. Linda had tears in her eyes. Robert looked uncomfortable. Dad, Linda said quietly, we're just trying to keep you safe. I know, I said, but I don't want to be safe. I want to be alive. We talked for another hour. I told them I'd make some compromises. I'd get a medical alert system. I'd hire someone to help with heavy chores. I'd check in every day, but I wasn't leaving my house. Not yet. Not until I was ready. They left that day without agreeing, but without pushing either. And in the 3 months since, something's changed. Not in them, in me. I've started doing things I always said I'd do later. I sit on the porch in the mornings and watch the birds. I don't bring a book or a tablet, I just sit. I called David's daughter my granddaughter Emily and asked if she'd like to come over for dinner. Not a holiday, just a random Thursday. She said yes. We talked for 3 hours about her job, her worries, her life. I listened, really listened, not thinking about what I needed to say next or what I should be doing instead. Just listened. I've been going through old photo albums, slowly, not rushing to finish or organize them or put them in order, just looking, remembering. There's a photo from 1965, Margaret and me on our honeymoon. We're standing in front of a lake and she's laughing at something I said. I don't remember what it was, but I remember that moment now, really remember it, in a way I didn't when I was living it, because back then I was already thinking about what came next, the drive home, the new job, the bills. I was there, but I wasn't. I've started saying something to myself now, just 2 words, stay here. I say it when my mind starts drifting to tomorrow or next week or all the things I should be doing. Stay here, in this moment, in this conversation, in this quiet morning with the coffee still hot and the birds singing outside the window. Linda calls every other day now. She still worries. I can hear it in her voice. But last week she said something that surprised me. "Dad, you seem different." "Different how?" I asked. "I don't know. Lighter, maybe. Like you're not in such a hurry." "I'm not. For the first time in my life, I'm not rushing to the next thing, because I finally understand what I should have learned at 51 or 60 or 70. There is no next thing. There's only this thing, this moment, this conversation, this cup of coffee, this breath. I'm 89 years old, and I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm not spending it. Waiting for later, I'm not spending it. Preparing for some future that might never come. I'm spending it here, now, in my house, with my memories, with the people I love when they call or visit, fully present for the first time in decades. My children wanted me to move to assisted living because they love me and they're scared of losing me. I understand that. But what I've learned, what I wish I'd learned 50 years ago, is that you don't lose someone when they die. You lose them every time you're in the same room, but not really there. Every time you say not now or later or I'm too busy. Every time you choose the next thing over this thing. I lost David long before he died. I lost Margaret while she was sitting next to me on the couch. I lost years, decades, a lifetime of moments I can never get back because I was always somewhere else. I'm not making that mistake again, not with whatever time I have left. So if you're reading this or listening to this and you're 30 or 40 or 50 and you're busy and overwhelmed and convinced you'll have time later, you won't. Not the way you think. The people you love are here now. The moments that matter are happening now. And you can't save them for later because later doesn't work that way. Stay here. Not tomorrow. Not when things calm down. Not when you retire or when the kids grow up or when you finally have time. Here. Now, in this messy, ordinary, fleeting moment, I'm 89 years old, and I'm finally learning how to be present. It shouldn't have taken this long, but I'm grateful I figured it out before it was too late. Don't wait as long as I did. Don't spend your life running toward some imaginary finish line where everything will finally be calm and you'll finally have time. That moment doesn't exist. Stay here, with the people you love, in the life you have, right now, because I promise you, there is no later. There's only this, and this is already slipping away.